Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Don't Risk It podcast presented by VFIS Client Risk Solutions. This program focuses on the exposures our clients frequently encounter and discusses the potential solutions to help reduce these exposures. I'm your host, Chris Rodgers with VFIS Client Risk Solutions, and today is the second episode of our two-part series discussing peer support in emergency services. Joining me on the program today is Randy Gates, and Randy is a captain at Truckee Meadows Fire and Rescue and also a breathwork facilitator and wellness educator for Breath of Fire. Randy is joining us today to discuss peer support and his unique approach to supporting the mental health of emergency service providers. Randy, I want to thank you for joining me on the program, and I really appreciate your time.
It's an honor to be here, Chris. I'm grateful for this conversation, so thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We are grateful as well. So to start off with, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you work, your role in the department, any other details you might want to provide?
Sure. Well, I work for Truckee Meadows Fire and Rescue, which is in Washoe County, northern Nevada. So we work basically right outside of the city of Reno, and I'm a captain there. And in the department, I also am on our health and wellness committee. I'm on our peer support team. I really value the human factor that's important for us in our daily work as firefighters, and how those firefighters take that back home to their families, and how we show up for the people that we serve. And so anything in that realm is something that I'm very, very passionate about. And so outside of there, I'm also a breathwork facilitator, and I'm sure we'll get to talk more about that, but that is where a lot of my passion is at, in bringing these unique breathwork programs and whatever I can do to help get our firefighters and first responders and military veterans, frontline workers into a state of thriving is kind of really where my heart is at.
So to kind of follow up on that, how did you get involved in peer support programs and with this initiative and what you just mentioned?
Yeah, well, in my own life, I've really been focused on physical performance and my own physical health, because when I was a freshman in college, I sustained a very bad traumatic accident. I was a multi-systems trauma patient, getting run over by a cigarette racing boat, and almost died and had this near-death experience. And anyways, all those things kind of brought me to the fire service. And because of the trauma I sustained and all the things my body has to do for compensation for it to work properly, it's really important that I stay physically fit and keep joint health and value sleep and all these things. And so that became my own physical practice. And then the more I worked in the fire service, the more it became apparent, the actual struggles that we take on from a mental perspective, and that mental health, our country itself, in my opinion, has a mental health crisis. And then for sure with firefighters and first responders and military and veterans. And then I had the very unique opportunity that within our own department, what started as the Northern Nevada Peer Support Network, that then became the Nevada Peer Support Network as it increased its net and its impact, created by Chief Garrick Reed, right here in our own backyard. This push, basically this opportunity for first responders to be open to these ideas of talking about mental health, and so that really started to draw me in. And I'm not sure if that answers your question, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it.
No, yeah, I mean, you have your own story in that, and then that's what brought you in. And speaking of Derek Reed, we actually did a podcast with him a couple of weeks ago, and it'll be the one that it's released previous. It'll be released a week or a couple of weeks before this one, so it's kind of a double-edged approach to how you all are doing it. He gave kind of the, I guess you would say, 50,000 foot view, and you're kind of giving a more a granular view of a program that you put in place. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, I so value the work that Chief Reed has put in and what he's created in our region, and then lots of other departments from neighboring agencies and then neighboring states, and then even farther than that, have kind of reached out to Derek and really looking at what he's done as kind of like a model to get their peer support going. And The difference on like peer support has many different kind of flavors to it, and there's different parts of it for everybody, which is the beautiful part, and not every part resonates with every person. And where my focus on is really on proactive stuff for firefighters and things that are very much like something that they can do physically in their body. Firefighters are very hands-on and want to do things. We struggle a lot of times with like, distance learning and computer programs and Zoom and stuff like that, and even classroom learning. It's really the hands-on where most of the people in this type of industry that I find that kind of resonates the same with not only just firefighters, but military veterans, frontline workers, other first responders. And so that's kind of really where I'm drawn is what can we be doing on the daily to maintain our mental health so that we don't ever get to crisis mode. And for me, when I talked to other firefighters and when I first started this career, we never really even talked about mental health. You were just taught to bury it, don't talk about it, stuff it down. And the reality is that is a toxic practice that has cumulative effects. And so doing the things that I'm trying to introduce and invite other firefighters to deal with is kind of similar, like going to the gym. You go to the gym to stay physically fit, but very few people do things to exercise their mind and their spirit to make sure that they're staying mentally fit, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I always jokingly say, and I mean, it's not a joking subject, but it's just the way that I phrase it, that, firefighters, emergency response personnel, they'll often run into a burning building or an emergency situation to save someone, but it's not always that they look inward for their own mental health. And so sometimes that either has to be pushed or you kind of have to have that open conversation with them to get that conversation started.
I couldn't agree more. And what excites me is it seems like this conversation is happening more frequently, and people are feeling more okay on being vulnerable on what they're feeling and kind of what they're going through, because firefighters and other first responders, not only do they have their own macro and micro traumas from their life, but they're also exposed to those from the calls that they go on for the communities that they serve. And giving people the opportunity to figure out how to release those things so that they're not carrying that with them their whole life, in my opinion, is critical for them and how they show up for themselves and in relationship and how they find peace and joy and gratitude in their lives. And previously, there's a lot of kind of bravado in the fire services. You don't want to show weakness and you have to be strong. And so you kind of stuff this stuff down and, we don't need to talk about it. And so for me, maybe talking about it isn't the thing that works for everybody. For me, what I found is actually how we are able to release these things through actually giving ourselves the space and time to feel them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So I want to piggyback on something that you mentioned earlier about the breathwork initiatives that you do. You certainly have a unique approach to wellness education. So can you give our listeners an overview of the process during one of your breathwork journeys?
Sure. So to kind of give you a little bit of history, I've just found the breath to be such a powerful tool that's within all of us that can do all kinds of different things. I originally started studying it for down regulation. We get all these calls in the middle of the night or whatever, things that dump, epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol into our bloodstream, and then trying to get back to a state of rest and recovery is really hard. And then oftentimes you finally get to that point, maybe you're starting to get to rest again, and boom, the tones go off again and the cycle repeats itself. So I spent a lot of time focusing on down regulation techniques, and I kind of really dismissed this active breath that we do for these breathwork journeys because I didn't really feel like I needed more stimulation. And a couple of years ago, I did one of these, and it blew me away on how physical it was. And the physicalness of it is the part that really spoke to me on how it changed how you process emotions and how you feel emotions, and then how you can have basically a physical release, letting go of these things. And so the type of work that we do is modern breath work that's called transformational breath work, which is a type of holotropic breath work, if people are familiar with the work that Stanislav Grof and his wife had done. And this is stuff that's been around for, ever since humans have been around in community and been using the power of the breath to change consciousness, to create calm, to create more presence, to create expanded states of consciousness. And so Breath of Fire is what we call our programming. And we're stacking a bunch of different modalities together to create an experience that gets you out of your head and into your body. Most firefighters, we're professional problem solvers. So you spend a lot of time in your head analyzing, problem solving, seeing what's wrong. A lot of the narrative on a lot of people's things is what's wrong, and then let's fix it. And it drives people crazy when they see what's wrong, and then they don't feel empowered to make a change. And so what we're trying to do is get you out of that beta brainwaves, that problem hyper alert state, and get you into something that allows you to feel differently and get out of your head and into your body. And so we're using music, we're using Reiki, we're using supportive touch, we're using traditional vibratory instruments such as Tibetan singing bowls and ocean drums and sonic chimes, and with the breath work. And I actually am also a DJ, and so electronic music is a passion of mine. And so I'm live DJing with soulful electronic music that, people have had experience with music before, where they're driving or they're in their shower or they're working out, and they're just taken away by the music, and they're no longer in their heads thinking, and they're able to just set everything down and relax and get out of that beta brainwave. They're normally in a state of theta, alpha, or delta. And that is a state of recovery and rest for them. And so this experience of using electronic music through a very high quality sound system, so you can feel the electronic vibrations. You have my wife Jody helps support and hold space for these things, and we have some other firefighters that join us for that as well. And they're going around the room providing supportive touch, like just hands on someone's chest or on their head or on their feet can be enough to give somebody the permission to totally let go of what they've kept bottled up. And then having some of these traditional instruments like a Tibetan singing bowl placed on your chest and rang several times, that really deep vibration moving through your whole body can be enough that opens a door into where you've been holding these emotions. And so that, with the breath work that we're doing, and the breath work is very active. You're doing a kind of a controlled hyperventilation for about 45 to 50 minutes, which sounds like a lot. And it's because it is. And it's called breath work for a reason. You are doing work, but the goal after about 15 minutes is to hopefully find that flow, that state of balancing effort and ease, where all of a sudden your breath is in tune with your body and you are feeling the music, and the music is inviting emotion, and you're out of your head. And all of a sudden you don't know where your breath, your music, the space in the room, where one starts and one ends, and those kind of boundaries start to blur, and it can be a very powerful experience.
I've music and comedy, both of those things can do that. They can take you out of that headspace and put you in, and if you're feeling down, just going and listening to something that's beautiful, or hearing something that makes you laugh, just to get those good positive emotions going in your body. It's something that I do, and you and I could go off on a tangent probably for a long time on the music side of it, because I play drums in a band right now, and I played guitar and I played bass in a band, and that's something that the listeners probably wouldn't want to hear, but you and I would probably really enjoy it. So I'll save them that one, and I'll move on to the next question. You mentioned that emergency service providers are part of these journeys, these breathwork exercises. Is it limited to those personnel, or is there a target audience outside of that? From because the general public, they also have some of these same mental hurdles that emergency service providers have.
Absolutely, Chris. My passion and my heart is bringing this ideally to more firefighters, just because those are the folks that I work with on a daily basis, and seeing the mental health crisis that is in that industry. And that easily expands to my friends who are veterans, and those that are in the military, and those that are in law enforcement, and those that work, EMS on just private ambulance, or working for wildland firefighting agencies, or working as frontline workers in the hospitals, or teachers, or any of these things. and their partners as well, and obviously anybody else that that resonates with this. And what we found while we're doing this work is those that really identify and resonate with it have had incredibly transformative experiences, and we've built up a pretty large following. And most of our hands-on in-person sessions, sell out, and that feels really good, knowing that for those people that are there, we feel like we're on the right path, and we're giving them an experience that is, allowing them to release whatever it is that they're holding on to, or experience joy or gratitude or love in a way that they've never experienced before, that brings them closer to wholeness in the rest of their life. And ironically, the word holotropic, just means closer to wholeness. And so that's what we're doing. We're using the breath, we're using the physiology that we change. Like normally our bodies are in a state of mild acidosis, and when you breathe off all of your carbon dioxide, you change the pH of your blood to slightly alkaline. And that shift, that physiological shift in our bodies, is kind of what changes our receptors and changes the blood flow in our brain. And so we're now able to change these patternings and get out of that incessant background that's always like problem solving, or always analyzing, or always thinking about the past, or worrying about the future. And what people have experienced is this immense, like, profound feeling of actually being fully present in the moment and not having to think or worry about anything else, and being in their bodies. And it can be an experience they've never had before.
I certainly am guilty of not being in the present. I'll have an event that I want to go to, and then I get there, and then I'll be thinking about the next thing that I'm going to do instead of enjoying myself in that moment. So it sounds like I need to sit through one of your workshops to calm my brain down a little bit.
Well, we'd love to have you if it ever lines up for you.
well, that kind of dovetails into my next question. Is your work limited to the Nevada, kind of California area, or do you work outside of those areas?
I live in Truckee, so just right outside of Lake Tahoe, and work in Reno, Nevada. And so obviously, just geographically, because that fits where we're at, we have a huge demand for our programming in Reno and in the Truckee, Lake Tahoe area. And we're also not limited to that. There's been departments that have reached out from other states and different parts of the country. We've been at some different fire conferences, and people who have experienced it really want to bring us to their department. And so we're open to traveling and bringing this show on the road. And once a month, for one of the ones that we do in Reno, we actually do a hybrid event where it's not just in person, but there is the ability to experience it, to tune in through Zoom. And so normally I'm not a huge fan of more Zoom things, but what this allows is people to, maybe they're a little apprehensive about doing something like this, and they don't feel comfortable doing it in a group. They can do it from the comfort of their own home, their living room, their bedroom, wherever they want. Or maybe they're not located in northern Nevada or in the Lake Tahoe area, and this is a way they can experience what we're doing. Or maybe they're overseas in another country, who knows? And so people can tune in to those events, and even though it is a Zoom link, there still is a lot of powerful energy in the fact that you're collectively doing this with a group of people at the same time. And part of the magic of the experience is being vulnerable and having the courage to do this type of experience in a group, because we're social creatures. And what a lot of firefighters and first responders kind of tell themselves, especially when they're hurting or when they're troubled, is they don't want to be a burden, and they don't want to bring this to, especially not have their healing journey and their growth journey be involved in community. They want to do it maybe in private on their own. And what we found is really the power of coming together and doing this in community can really jumpstart and set your trajectory in a completely different way than you could have if you were just trying to do it on your own. And so people can find us at www.breathoffire.works. And I know that .works at the end can be confusing, but it's a great ending to that website because it does work. And on there, you can find our events, and you can find if there's an event that you want to attend in person, which for me, that's where the real magic is. And you can still have a very potent experience by doing this via Zoom. And we're working on having those sessions recorded so that there is also the ability, if the Zoom time doesn't work for people, that they could have access to the recording. And again, people, a lot of this stuff right now is available for just a small donation, and a lot of it even for free, because we want to get that work out there. And those people that experience it, and if it really speaks to them and they want to help contribute so we can keep moving this process forward, great. And if people find they aren't able to contribute financially, that is not stopping us from continuing to put this into the world.
Yeah, I think we all learned during the COVID times that Zoom, it wasn't the best method of meeting with clients or with personnel, but it is an effective tool of communication, at least. And in your case, it's a first step. They might not have taken if you didn't have that avenue, if it was strictly a group setting. So at least, as you said, they can get dip their toe in the water and see if it's for them before they get into a situation where they might be uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
So can you talk about some of the success stories of the program?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Some of the ones that really stick to my mind is, we've had a veteran that has come to a lot of these journeys and has been, going to different types of therapy and whatnot for over 10 years, and was diagnosed the most severe case of PTSD, which the diagnosis said was untreatable. And he's struggling in his relationships and his jobs and finding meaning in his life and managing, suicidal ideations and all of this, and started coming to these breathworks. And the feedback that he shared with us is this is the first time in his life that he's ever experienced love at this level. And it's the first time that he's able to find calm and peace back in his life again. And hearing, there's countless stories like that. That one just really rings true for me, especially somebody, who served our country and who's been dealing with trying to find help and just keeps getting prescribed, like medications and being told that he can't be fixed. And again, I'm not saying this is a magic bullet or pill that's going to fix everybody. And there's every modality and every type of treatment, and for mental health has its place. But to be able to use something that's within your own body, a tool of the breath, and to be able to use it on a daily basis for just kind of finding presence and calm, and using it for these bigger breathwork journeys to be able to really release and kind of move closer to thriving, to me is super powerful. And that's just one story. And another one, just this last weekend, we had a firefighter and his wife that joined, and together, from what he has been working through professionally, he's felt stuck and he hasn't been able to move past this. And so for the last 4 years, that's affected their relationship in a way that the wife shared that she hasn't felt gratitude in 4 years. And at that session together, them being there and sharing in community and breathing and having this experience, she shared that she was overwhelmed and taken away with gratitude. And he expressed that during that time, he felt something that stuck, that energy that he didn't know, that feeling in his gut that has just been dragging him down. He felt it release. And so again, those are just two stories, and we could spend, weeks just sharing the countless experiences that people have had that have been positive. And so I really appreciate you asking that. And I will follow that up by saying, not everybody has a positive experience. This can be very intense. And sometimes we've spent a lifetime coping and teaching ourselves to be numb and not allowing ourselves to feel the difficult emotions, the challenging ones, the disappointment, the fear, the shame, the anger, and the sadness, the grief. And sometimes this may open Pandora's box, and it may make things more difficult and more painful for a while. However, my experience has been that truly, to be moving through the other side, you can't short step those things. They have to be fully felt in order to be released, to move on. And just becoming numb and ignoring them, we can cope and we can be okay. And for me, it's just not good enough. Just being okay in this life is not good enough. We should be amazing and finding a way to really thrive.
Those are some awesome stories, and that definitely gives currency to keep doing what you're doing, and even the ones that aren't success stories that you might have planted a seed for down the road that becomes a success story once they've went through those things that they might have compartmentalized or whatever that might have made it a bad experience. Could have been a starting point to get them on the road to to living a better life.
And that is obviously, our hope. The biggest challenge for me is a lot of firefighters, military veterans, first responders, frontline workers are so used to kind of just having to deal with this stuff on their own that they're kind of a little gun shy on what is this person going to be able to offer. And so where I think that, just them going and dealing, talking to, going to a yoga studio or going to some other breath worker or, going to a sound healing or something like that might feel like they don't really know what I do. And one of the things that I think that helps make these experiences so powerful for them is the fact that I also sit in their shoes. I also am a firefighter. I still do the job. I know what they're experiencing. I can't personally know their pain or their experience, but I can understand the job, and I can let them know that it's not okay for us to be suffering in silence, and it's not okay for us just to be okay. Like, we can be better than that, and we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to our partners, and we owe it to our kids, and we owe it to the people that we serve to fully show up and to be present and to have an open heart.
Well, you might not understand their completely what they're going through, but you can definitely sympathize with some of the struggles that they've had, and coming from the same line of work, that definitely gives you some credibility, and they're probably going to be a little bit more open with you, I would think.
It sure seems that way, and if I wish every firefighter and everybody that we've talked about would at least be curious and try it once, and they're coming more. We're building momentum, and my part is having the patience to be ready for them when they feel it's right for them, if that makes sense.
For sure. So I know you talked about the website, a few comments ago, but can we round out the podcast with this final question of where can our listeners find out more information about the program and details about upcoming events?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I think our website is one of the best places to go. It's www.breathofire.works. And again, the .works is purposely chosen because it does work. And we also, on Instagram, you can find us at the same thing at breathofire.works. Both of those places will show upcoming events. On the website, where we have a monthly event in Reno that has, like I said, the Zoom component, so you can join from us there. And we're hoping to start having some of these recorded sessions available as well for people, so that they can visit the recordings on their own time and not have to be on our schedule.
That is really awesome to hear, and that's a lot of great information. And I applaud all the efforts that you are doing to help our first responders. So, Randy, I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing the information about your program and all the details. And I want to thank you for your time.
Oh, it has been an honor, and thank you so much. And I look forward to, it's interesting when you look at where things have gone in just the last year of, your life and doing this type of work and where you're at now. I'm really excited to see, hopefully we get to have a follow-up podcast in a year from now and see where things have gone.
Absolutely. I look forward to that. And I want to thank you for listening to the program and for your interest in VFIS safety resources. I want to thank our guest Randy Gates once again for his time and information. Please consider subscribing to our program to stay up to date on new content releases. Also, if you like what you've heard, please consider leaving a review below. For more information about the many resources available from VFIS, please visit VFIS.com. And to submit ideas for future discussions, please reach out by emailing VFISriskcontrol@VFIS.com. Thanks everyone, and have a great day. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Gladfelter Insurance Group, VFIS, and its employees. Additionally, all views, information, or opinions expressed are provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal, medical, or other professional advice on any subject matter.